Welcome back. Today we are plunging headfirst into the addictive and sometimes brutal world of the album quest.
It's a fascinating concept.
It really is. And if you're new to it, just think of it like a World Cup for music. It's a way to try and answer that impossible question, what's the greatest album of all time?
And it's more than just a list. It's an intense analytical process of forced comparison. The sources we're looking at today come from a methodology laid out by the blogger Greensterox.
Right, who's been documenting his own quest for years, pitting these musical giants against each other.
And some surprising dark horses, too.
The genius of it, and maybe the cruelty, too, it's all in the rules. His entire music library gets randomly sorted into these groups of 4.
And you can't just pick a favorite. You have to dedicate time to repeated, focused listening of all 4 albums. Sometimes they're wildly different.
And then you rank them. The stakes are, well, they're pretty high, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. The top 2 from each group move on to the next round.
And the bottom 2 are just gone, instantly eliminated, which means, sometimes a really, really excellent album gets knocked out way too early just because it drew an impossible group.
Which is the perfect setup for the group we're talking about today.
Group 217, round 1. And this wasn't just a tough group, it was a fascinating clash. A clash of formats, of eras, of motivations. We had 4 incredibly different contenders thrown into the ring.
You really did. First up, you have this sprawling, decade-spanning history of cinema in a compilation, Best of Bond, James Bond.
And that's up against the complete opposite. A really focused, angry comeback from a veteran rapper, Eminem's Kamikazi.
Then you throw in a really high-quality emotional pop debut from a superstar, Sam Smith's In the Lonely Hour.
And the ultimate wild card, a television soundtrack that nobody really expected to be a serious contender, the music of Nashville, Season 1, Volume 2.
It's a group that really forces the listener to ask some tough questions. What do you value more? Consistent quality or cultural impact? Dynamic range or emotional depth?
An original album versus a curated collection.
Exactly.
So our mission for this segment of the Album Quest is to unpack that entire journey through Group 217. The listening, the surprises, and most importantly, the thinking behind that final ranking.
A ranking that saw 2 very different records move on and 2 really solid albums get eliminated.
So to spoil it for you right up front, the final ranking was this. Number 1, Best of Bond, James Bond.
Moving on.
Number 2, Eminem's Kamikazi. Also moving on.
And then the cuts.
Eliminated in 3rd place, In the Lonely Hour by Sam Smith. And in 4th, The Music of Nashville.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the champion. Compilation that somehow beat 3 proper studio albums. How on earth did Best of Bond take the top spot?
Well, the win here is really a masterclass in how context and nostalgia can just elevate music. It wasn't just about the quality of the songs, which is obviously immense.
It was a personal connection.
Exactly. The author's whole relationship with these songs was rekindled because of a family project. He was introducing his 11-year-old daughter to James Bond.
And it wasn't just casual viewing, right?
No, not at all. The daughter, she insisted on being a purist about it. They had to start with the very first film, Dr. No.
And watch them all in chronological order.
Every other Sunday afternoon. It became this ritual. At the time he was writing this, they were all the way up to Timothy Dalton's first movie, The Living Daylights.
And that's the key right there, isn't it? That experience. By watching the films one after another, you're constantly reminded of how tied together the movies and the music are.
Yeah, that ritual just cemented the album's place in his mind. It creates this powerful feedback loop. You're reassessing the films, and at the same time, you're hearing the music as this continuous 45-year-long story.
Which is what prompted him to find the definitive collection to enter into the album quest in the first place.
So let's talk about the album itself, because this raises a fundamental question about the Quest format, doesn't it? Is it really fair for a best-of compilation with 45 years of hits to compete against a single studio album?
It's a legitimate question. But the author is strict about his rules. If it's an album in the library, it competes. And this compilation, logistically, it's kind of a miracle it even exists.
It really is. Best of Bond. James Bond has every single hit song up to the one from Quantum of Solace in 2008.
That's 45 years of music. Different artists, different labels, different rights holders.
The author specifically mentioned he was worried about that, that there would be licensing gaps or some crucial song would be missing because of copyright issues.
But the source confirms, quote, "They are all here." And the production quality is superb, which is amazing when you think about the different recording technologies from the 60s, 70s, 80s.
And the structure of the album is just genius. It's chronological. It starts with that iconic instrumental theme. You know the one?
Oh, yeah. That surf rock guitar and the brass stabs.
And then it just takes you on this 77-minute journey through the evolution of pop music.
And the sheer class of the performers is just, it's almost overwhelming. You've got Shirley Bassey, Tina Turner, Gladys Knight.
Paul McCartney, Louis Armstrong.
It's a staggering lineup.
Let's get into the music a bit. Bassey's Goldfinger is always held up as the pinnacle. Why does that track hold up so well?
It's all in the arrangement. It's so dramatic.
Yeah.
John Barry uses these incredibly powerful, sustained brass chords to create this sense of glamour and menace at the same time.
It's so powerful.
And Bassey's vocal is just the final perfect piece of that sonic architecture.
The author also mentioned her other songs, of course, Diamonds Are Forever, but he also highlighted a lesser-known one, Moonraker.
That's a great pull. Moonraker gets overlooked, but it shows Barry's emotional range. It's not aggressive like Goldfinger. It's much more lush, almost like lounge jazz, but it still has that dramatic Bond structure.
So this compilation, it's not just a playlist of hits. It's like a sonic document that runs right alongside the evolution of the spy himself.
Precisely. The challenge for the Bond films was always, how do you keep this Cold War spy relevant?
Right.
And they did it by updating the stories, the tone, shifting from spy thrillers to action-adventure, then back to something grittier.
And the music adapted right along with it. The 60s tracks were pure cool. Crooner, jazz, swing. You think of Matt Monroe's From Russia with Love.
So sophisticated.
Yeah.
Then the 70s hit, and rock music enters the picture. Paul McCartney and Wings just blew the doors open with Live and Let Die.
So rumbustious, as the author put it.
Yeah, it was stadium rock ready, but even then, you still had these softer moments, like Carly Simon's Nobody Does It Better, which is just a classic piano ballad.
Then we get to the 80s, and the soundtrack just fully embraces synth. I mean, Sheena Easton's For Your Eyes Only, Duran Duran's A View to a Kill.
And Aha's The Living Daylights. And this is where that family viewing ritual becomes so important. The author was literally watching The Living Daylights while he was listening to the Aha track for The Quest.
That context just makes you appreciate it so much more. How Aha managed to sound exactly like themselves, but also fit perfectly into that high-stakes Bond world.
Then you jump forward to the 2000s, and you get Madonna's Die Another Day.
Which is pure, slick, new millennium pop. The author said it was a million miles away from the jazz of the 60s.
And that contrast leads to the most important question, right? Despite hopping across all these genres for 4 decades, what's the thread? What ties it all together?
It's the sonic DNA.
Exactly. The essence of Bond, that suave, sophisticated feeling, it's kept alive by having some kind of orchestral arrangement in every single song, no matter the genre.
And the man responsible for weaving that thread, that DNA, was John Barry. He had a hand in almost every song up until 1987.
He was a master of the motif. Even when he wasn't officially scoring a film, his musical language was there. That classic Bond chord progression. It's instantly recognizable.
So you can have Madonna doing a dance track, but when you hear that dark brass or that specific string arrangement,
You know instantly, this is 007.
that strong identity is what allowed the music to be so adaptable.
It could change its rhythm, go from swing to techno, but as long as that orchestral core was there, it was undeniably Bond.
Let's talk about the reassessment, because that's so key to the quest. The author admitted he initially thought the Daniel Craig-era songs had lost something.
He said, Chris Cornell's, My Name seemed pretty tuneless at first. And the Jack White and Alicia Keys duet, that one almost passed him by completely.
But this is where the format of the quest shines. It forces you to listen repeatedly.
And that's when you start to unlock the complexity.
And his reassessment was positive. After dozens of listens, he concluded that even those last 2 tracks were pretty solid and absolutely met the standard.
Yeah, if you think about You Know My Name, it's not trying to be melodic in the old way. It's harsher, more rock-driven to reflect the raw, gritty style of Casino Royale. It wasn't tuneless, it was intentionally abrasive.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The final conclusion he reached is that the very idea of making a Bond theme, it acts like this incredible quality filter. It just raises the bar, forcing the artist to deliver something elevated.
It's an exercise in creative maximalism. The expectation of cinematic scale just means that even a compilation of 45 years of different genres feels completely unified by its quality. And that, plus the family context, is what made it the winner.
A deserving winner. But now we have to pivot to the runner-up, the album that took the second spot and moved on. Eminem's Kamikazi.
a completely different story here. This is an album about failure, reaction, and strategic brilliance.
Kamikazi is the definition of a comeback album, isn't it? It wasn't born from some gentle creative evolution. It was a direct, aggressive response to the criticism of his previous album, Revival.
And the source material is very clear about why Revival didn't work. The author found it disappointing, bloated, just way too long.
And he pointed to two major problems. The first was what he called the failed splice tracks.
Right, so Eminem often integrates samples or other people's choruses into his raps. When it works, it's incredible.
But on Revival, the author argued, it just didn't blend. The samples felt tacked on, the choruses clashed with the verses, it all felt very disjointed.
And the second big turnoff, and this was a big one for a lot of fans, was the political crap. It just alienated his core audience. They come for the technical skill and the storytelling, not for commentary that felt, well, shoehorned in.
So Kamikazi, which was a surprise release right after Revival tanked, was basically a rapid surgical course correction.
It was Eminem essentially saying, oh, you don't like my experiments, fine. Here is pure, uncut, technical rapping. The strategy was simple, strip it all back, no bloat, and just focus.
And getting rid of most of the collaborations let that pure skill shine. The album is just full of this mesmerizingly fast rap and really inventive sonics.
And the proof is right there in the opening verse of Not Alike, which the author called an hypnotic shower of words. I mean, if you break it down, that's Eminem just showing off his technical superiority. Multisyllabic rhymes that stretch across bar lines. It's a torrent of language.
It's rap as a display of pure linguistic power, and that return to his core strength is what powered Kamikazi into the second spot.
And by dropping the politics, he could refocus on classic Eminem themes. Self-praise, technical skill, lashing out at critics. You have tracks like Greatest, which is just pure bravado.
And the title track, Kamikazi, which is just this chaotic spray of anger at everyone who criticized Revival.
You also get these autobiographical moments, like him reminiscing about the end of D12. That blend of technical fireworks and raw personal storytelling, that's his sweet spot.
Then you have Venom, the song from the movie. The author noted this with a bit of sarcasm, calling it a sellout track.
But that raises a good question. I mean, if a track is made for a movie, but it's executed so well that it fits perfectly with the aggressive, focused tone of the album, is it really a failure?
Or is it just shrewd? He needed a high-energy track, and Venom delivers. The fact he could make a movie tie-in feel essential to his comeback story, that's another sign of his success.
The big takeaway with Kamikazi is that it proves the value of a strategic pivot. When you're facing criticism, sometimes the best move is to aggressively return to your core strengths.
Which brings us to a moment of what I can only call podcast tragedy in this album quest.
Oh yes, the elimination of Sam Smith's debut in The Lonely Hour in third place.
This is where the sheer cruelty of the random draw really hits you.
It is. And the author gave us a huge clue about how painful this was for him. He said this was, and I quote, probably the strongest album we've lost in round one since U2's All That You Can't Leave Behind got knocked out 5 years earlier.
5 years ago. That really underscores how good this album is. So let's talk about why it's so good before we get into why it lost.
It's an exceptional collection of emotional pop. And Sam Smith's vocal talent is just undeniable, incredible technical control, especially in that falsetto, but with a tone that's just so vulnerable.
The production is pristine. You hear every little nuance. The opener, Money on My Mind, is such a cracking pop tune. It uses that high range to create this really interesting vocal riff right from the get-go.
And then, of course, the material is just laced with quality. Stay With Me is that huge gospel-esque power ballad that just defined the record.
And you have the other classic ballads, the really heart-wrenching ones like I'm Not the Only One and Life Support. The lyrics are so universal, unrequited love, jealousy.
It's an incredibly consistent album, and that consistency is usually a good thing. The only real change of pace is Naughty Boy's La 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 near the end, which injects a bit of tempo.
But that choice, that consistency, ironically, is what led to its downfall. The critique was simple, but in this context, it was brutal. The album is very ballad-heavy and a little bit on the slow side.
But this raises an important question, doesn't it? Is being too slow a legitimate criticism of the music itself, or is it a flaw of the competition?
That's a great point. If your goal is to create a consistently emotional mood, Sam Smith absolutely succeeds. But in the quest, when you're listening to it right after the Explosive Bond compilation and a furious Eminem record, that slow pace becomes a liability.
Exactly. When you're forced to listen to 4 albums on a loop, the one with the most dynamic range and rhythmic variety is just going to win the battle for your attention. The profound consistency of In the Lonely Hour was its undoing.
It just lost momentum against its high-octane rivals. So it didn't lose because it lacked quality. It lost because its emotional focus made it seem one-dimensional in a group that rewarded variety and aggression.
A painful lesson. Consistency is admirable, but diversification often wins the day in a bracket.
And finally, let's turn to the album in fourth place, The Dark Horse, the music of Nashville. TV soundtracks always have a tough time in these quests.
They do. And the source material starts with this really amusing hook, where the author admits he doesn't actually watch the show. His spouse does.
And his description of the show is just perfect. He calls it a glossy soap opera about country singers falling in and out of love with, surprise, distant relatives constantly showing up.
His summary is priceless.
Well,
Dallas, but every 15 minutes somebody does some country karaoke.
it paints a perfect picture. But here's the twist. Despite the show being so soapy, the music is described as extremely solid.
This is the surprise. It could have been a cheap cash-in, but it wasn't. The quality shines through because the cast and the producers clearly spent a lot of time and money on the music. The actors can really sing.
And yet, when the author was doing his repeated listening, he ran into this weird problem, this nagging sense of déjà vu. He said, an awful lot of these songs sound very familiar.
This familiarity problem is interesting. He couldn't figure out why. Were they covers? Were they just knockoffs designed to sound exactly like other hit country songs? Or did the show just reuse the songs so much that he was overexposed?
The specific one he mentioned was Ho Hey by Lennon and Macy Stella. He was convinced it had to be an old song. And that confusion, it makes it hard to judge the album's artistic merit against original works by Smith and Eminem.
It speaks to how formulaic commercial country music can be sometimes. When you stick too close to the formula, you can trigger that false sense of familiarity, even with an original song.
But despite that, the album gets praised. He calls it a wonderful little album to listen to, and quite beautiful.
And you have to give credit to the standouts. Hypnotizing by Hayden Panettiere is called good enough to be a top 10 pop hit.
Which means that the production must have been top tier. Clean mixing, sophisticated layering, everything you'd expect from a major commercial release.
And then there's The Charm, You Ain't Dolly by Chris Carmack, and Claire Bowen is praised for its real charm. And the stripped-down songs, like Looking for a Place to Shine, also get high marks.
So the final verdict was that the Nashville album was really enjoyable and it performed well. But, and this is the key, it would have stood a chance of going through in a weaker group.
That's the story of Group 217. It's not about failures. It's about a historically competitive bracket where the bar was just set impossibly high.
Yeah.
Both Sam Smith and the Nashville soundtrack were just victims of a tough draw.
So let's review that final ranking one more time. In first place, and moving on, Best of Bond, James Bond. In second, also progressing, Kamikazi by Eminem.
Eliminated in third, In the Lonely Hour by Sam Smith. And eliminated in fourth, The Music of Nashville Season 1, Volume 2.